Good morning, and welcome to the third of three videos on the digestive system. So, hopefully, all of you have watched the Mr. Anderson video that is associated here or linked here. Um, and if so, you see that it's simply a review of the things that we've covered over the course of the first two videos that I produced here. Today, in this third of the three videos, we are going to talk a little bit about the ramifications of poor nutrition, one way or the other. And then we'll move on into some of the nutrients other than carbohydrates and proteins and lipids. We're going to begin this with a discussion of obesity and BMI. It's been stated that over the course of the last 30 to 40 years, that obesity has become one of the most major health crises in the United States. Um, so let's start by defining obesity and then talk about something called BMI, or body mass index. So obesity is defined as when an individual is grossly overweight and has a body mass index that is greater than or equal to 30. All right. Now, the two images here show two people at very different ends of the BMI spectrum. All right. The upper picture there is from a movie, Shallow Hal, if you've ever seen it. And that is, I believe, Gwyneth Paltrow, all decked out in a fat suit, if you will. And of course, the image of the person on the right is someone who is way too thin. All right. And again, both of these scenarios are unhealthy. Now, how do you determine whether your weight is appropriate for your body size, for your height specifically? Well, we use what's called the BMI, or the body mass index. Now, you have to keep in mind that this is just a general guide which estimates how much of a person's weight is due to adipose tissue. It does not take into account things like gender, fitness, or bone structure. All right. For example, um, women tend to carry more fat than men. All right, this is just a result of biology. All right, women store fatty tissue in their breasts, in their hips, and so on, much more easily than men do. Men tend to accumulate it in their belly, especially in middle age and older. Fitness level. All right. I've seen some football players in the NFL who just look like they're completely obese, but in reality, they're not. They're just big, maybe even big boned. All right. If you've ever watched South Park, you've heard Cartman say, "I'm not fat. I'm just big boned." Right. That is that is true, or it can be true. All right. So you have to take into account a lot of things, not just the BMI index. All right. Because the BMI can be misleading. However, it's a pretty good uh, measure of how much fat you're carrying around. Now, if you look at the graph that's shown on the screen right now, this is a BMI chart. And you can see your weight or weight is given on the x-axis here, and height in feet and inches is given on the y-axis in this case. And if you look carefully, you can see this area in here is underweight. The blue area here is healthy weight. The yellow is overweight, and the pink-ish is obese. All right. Now, how do you figure out your own BMI? Well, let's say, for example, that you were 5'8", okay, and you weighed 175 pounds. Okay, that puts you right here. All right, you can see. All right, you can see going all the way across and then down. All right, that puts you at obese. I'm sorry, that puts you at overweight. Okay, now if you're 6'2" and only weigh 100 pounds, all right, that puts you at underweight. Okay, and again, the healthy region is between this line, approximately, and this line. All right. So you can use this table to determine your own BMI right now, to determine which of these four categories you fall into. All right. Now, why is this important? Well, obesity and being overweight can put you at risk of a variety of different health issues. For example, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, which can all put you at risk of having a stroke or even a myocardial infarction, a heart attack. Now, a healthy BMI is somewhere between 18 and a half and 24 and a half, or 24.9 actually. Overweight is 25 to 30. Obese is 30 plus, and morbidly obese is 40 plus. All right, which we don't even have on this particular scale. Okay, now let's move on. We're going to do a lab exercise on this over the course of the next week, where I'll ask you to determine your own BMI, but we'll get to that later. Now, let's talk about some of the nutrients. All right, we talked about these in terms of their chemistry in the beginning of the semester. Now, let's talk about what we use them for and how we get them in our diets. All right, so carbohydrates, we know, are complex or simple sugars, and they are broken down in the body into simple sugars, and are used mostly for energy inside of our cells. Now, in terms of your diet, you should probably try to reduce the amount of refined grains, donuts, white bread, and that sort of thing. Because when you eat a slice of Wonder Bread, they have removed a good bit in the processing, in the refining process. They've removed a lot of the fiber and the vitamins and that sort of thing. So stay away from white bread, cake, and cookies. On the other hand, complex carbohydrates are better for you. They're the recommended source because they're a good source of vitamins and minerals. And examples of foods that you can get good carbohydrates from are beans, whole grain products like breads and cereals, nuts, and fruits. Okay, so increase the amount of whole grains and nuts and fruits, and decrease the amount of processed flour products like cookies and cakes and Twinkies and that sort of thing. Now, proteins. As you hopefully remember from the beginning of the semester, proteins can be broken down into 20 different amino acids, which are then reconstructed to produce your own proteins, your cellular proteins. Now, of those 20, 8 of them are what we call essential amino acids. All right. And these are amino acids that the human body cannot produce by itself. And so, therefore, they have to be taken in through your food. You have to eat them. Okay. Now, proteins in and of themselves come in 2 different forms. Complete proteins have all of the essential amino acids, and they are typically derived from animal products, meat and dairy and that sort of thing. There are some non-animal sources of complete proteins, and they include things like tofu, soy milk, and other foods that are processed from soybeans. All right. Now, there are other proteins out there that are called incomplete proteins because they lack at least one of the essential amino acids. And these include things like legumes, peas, and certain types of beans, nuts, grains, and that sort of thing. And so they either need to be combined with another incomplete protein or have another complete protein in the diet in order to make sure that all of those 20 amino acids can be taken in and used by the body. Now,
it's 10 o'clock.
Well, thank you, Jesus. Amino acids cannot be stored in the body, all right? And therefore, you should eat them multiple times a day, at least 2 servings of meat a day, in order to get all of the amino acids that you need. Now, lipids include fats and oils and cholesterol. Again, they come in several different forms. Saturated fats, usually of animal origin, are typically solid at room temperature. Think bacon and the fat you find on meat products. While unsaturated fats are usually liquid at room temperature. And the unsaturated fats tend to be healthier for you. They tend to help you not gain as much weight. Now, just like in the proteins, there are essential fatty acids, and these are the ones that you have to take in your diet. And they include things like linoleic acid and linolenic acid, which can only be found in polyunsaturated oils like corn oil and safflower oil. Um, Olive oil and canola oil are also good choices. They contain um, monounsaturated fats. And there are even animal products, omega-3 fatty acids, which are found in fish, are thought to help ward off heart disease. All right. And they're also found in some plant materials as well. All right. So you need fats in your diet. You can't have a completely fat-free diet and still be healthy because you need fats to build various body structures. Think about uh, the covering on the axons in your nervous system. All right. All of that myelin needs to be composed of fat, and therefore you need fatty acids and glycerol in your diet. Now, to move on to nutrients that we have not talked about yet, because they're not part of the organic molecules that we talked about in chapter 3 or 4 or 2, I can't remember. Minerals are the first. Now, minerals are actually elements from the periodic table, things like sodium, magnesium, potassium, calcium. All right. The body contains more than 5 grams of each major mineral and less than 5 grams of each trace mineral. Um, Major minerals are things that make up components of cells, your body fluids, and your tissues. They include calcium, phosphorus, potassium, sodium, magnesium, and a few others. And minor minerals are pieces or parts of larger molecules like iron and hemoglobin, copper, zinc, iodine, manganese, and a few others are included in that list. For a complete list of the minerals that are found in your body, both major and minor, you can look at a table on page 188 in your textbook. All right. And if you eat a complete diet and a varied diet, you usually have no problem getting all of the necessary minerals. Okay. Now, vitamins, on the other hand, these are organic compounds, right? So they contain carbon and hydrogen. But vitamins are not considered to be proteins, fats, or carbohydrates. And these are things that are used in our metabolism, but are not produced in high enough quantity by the body. So we have to take them in. They're important because oftentimes they will help in, they're enzyme helpers. And so sometimes vitamins are referred to as coenzymes. And there are a total of 13 different vitamins that are found in 2 groups, the fat-soluble vitamins and the water-soluble vitamins. Fat-soluble vitamins are things like vitamin A, D, E, and K. And these can be stored in the body, literally in your fat cells. The others, including vitamin C, B1, B2, niacin, folacin, B6, B12, and a few others, are water soluble. And what that means is that if you take them in excess, you will simply urinate them out. All right, you'll just get rid of them. So, for example, vitamin C. All right, you take in vitamin C every day, hopefully, but if you take in too much, you simply pee it out. So those products that they sell on the market that are supposed to give you, excess vitamin C, emergency, and those kinds of things, most of them are a farce, because if you take in too much vitamin C, you just pee it out. Now, if you're not eating your fruits and vegetables and getting vitamin C from a healthy diet, then certainly they would help. But if you're eating your fruits and vegetables, there's no need to take in that kind of thing. It's literally a waste. Okay, so my friends, that brings us to the end of the third video on digestion and nutrition, and I hope you learned something.